Welcome to Voyage the Geek for another week, a show where we do post-reactions to classic films from across time and genre. We've got a couple of standard warnings in place. First off, if you haven't seen the film, there will be massive spoilers ahead. In fact, we detail heavily what happens in the film, including the outcome. And secondly, truth mileage may vary, spurious facts contained within. Joining me as always, Dan Miller, and Skyping in all the way from Germany, almost the opposite side of the planet. You wouldn't be too far away from the opposite side of the planet from Southeast Australia. Tom McGill.
If we tunneled through the planet, I could reach you by submarine.
Yes, you're about 20,000 leagues away from us at the moment.
Yes, Tom mentioned at a production meeting that we were not possibly catering to an international audience enough, so he flew to Germany to do the show from Germany.
Above and beyond, man.
That's right. Subscribed from here, liked the show from here, and now I'm an extra fan.
Yes. So tonight we're going to have a look at an interesting piece of sci-fi cinema from the 1950s. And in fact, it's another Disney sci-fi. And we have done another Disney sci-fi classic in this season, which I won't announce because it hasn't been released yet. But it's the classic Jules Verne adventure, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
What is your understanding? How many of you are there?
"20,000 Leagues Under the Sea," 1954, Disney production, directed by Richard Fleischer, written by Earl Felton and Jules Verne, or Jules Verne or Jules Verne? Jules. Tom, I'll be crossing to you for various pronunciations throughout the show, starring a star-studded cast of Kirk Douglas, James Mason, Paul Lucas, Peter Lorre, I believe it's
Peter Lorre?
Lorre, yeah.
He's a German guy, so it's Peter Lorre.
And all four of those gentlemen have gone on to do other things, although you do have a little bit of information for Paul Lucas that we'll discuss later on, who plays the Professor Aronnax. But yes, Kirk Douglas and James Mason sort of really up front in this film. So let's start out by talking about when you might have discovered this film. Dan, did you see this film as Little Dan?
Yes, I'm very sure Little Dan probably saw this film multiple times. So I don't specifically remember seeing it, but it's one of those ones that's just in the background, you know? It's the background canvas. So, yes, totally aware of this film.
What about you, Tom?
I'm not sure that I saw the film. I remember seeing it in TV, booklet TV guides. I must have seen it as a child. I loved the books. I loved we used to have in the 70s, we used to have audio plays, right? So you have a long playing record or a cassette that plays, where actors perform it, right, in a 45-minute long, 90-minute long sort of time slot. And so I used the audio tape of 20,000 Leagues in the evenings. That's what I listened to in the evenings as to fall asleep. Even had here's a little comic book from the days.
Oh, it's blurred out, Tommy. You have to put it in front of your melon. There you go. Yep.
Nicely drawn, watercolored comic book, and of course the actual novel that I read a lot of Jules Verne stuff. Growing up, so I was a keen fan of the story. So But I did not, rewatching the movie, I did not remember too much of actually having seen the film.
So if you grew up putting the audio tape on for the film, you would be intimately connected to the first third, the first 20% of the the audio tape.
Word for word, I could quote. But of course, the tape is different to the comic, which is different to the book, which is different to the film. There's lots of differences between the film and the original stuff, right? Disney tried to put the best stuff on, the best visual stuff on there, like, fighting a kraken. So there's lots of stuff that they do in the book, which is equally fantastically visually, but they probably have difficult times doing it. I can do that right now. I can tell you now that in the book they hunt sperm whales, because sperm whales are evil monsters and they deserve dying. They deserve to be eradicated. And they find a pod of sperm whales and they drive the ship through them and cut them in half and spear them with the front of the ship. And that would have looked, today, do a scene like that, with CG, it'll look fantastic. And in 1954, with the special effects that they had at the time, they got a special effects Oscar for this film. They got a visual effects award, and that was mainly for the Kraken sequence, for the mechanics of that mechanic puppet of the Kraken, the tentacles and everything. And even that was very, very difficult to film at the time. They had to film it twice. Because the first time they filmed it, there was this calm sea, and you could see the threads that the tentacles were hanging.
It was
off.
like their first attempt at trying to make the puppet wasn't very good.
The puppet was good, but it was just the second time around. They said, "Well, we'll do it in a storm, and we'll do it at twilight, and it's darker, and there's lots of spray flying around, and then then you would notice when the light gleams of the fishing wire that suspends all the tentacles."
I think technically this film is quite an achievement just across the board. The underwater scenes, the walking underwater, the miniatures, that scene you're talking about, Tom, there are plenty of examples from that decade of filmmaking and even into the 60s and even into the 70s that don't stand up to how good this one looked on film.
I tell you, watching the film, watching the film, you sort of wait for the Kraken. When are we finally getting the Kraken scene?
Yep.
You everything else in the film, you go, let's lead up to the big cool little fight scene at the end.
Yes, it's there's some action, there's some dull moments with a lot of Disney-esque cinematic orchestra music, that harp type music that they use when someone's going underwater or things like that. So there is some flat moments in the film, but generally speaking, the story does sort of progress along quite well. So what we tend to do is use the narrative to drive our discussion for the film. And Dan, you're master of all things narrative, our tour guide, shall we speak. Where do we start with this one?
Often with these things, we start with a bit of a breakdown of what the story is, so people who don't know the story have got a bit of an overview. And remember, there's going to be spoilers in here as well. So what's the sort of, I don't know, the breakdown of the story? I don't know about the books, Tom. I think the story in the books, the original books, because they came out as a serial, right? They came out in little articles in magazines, I believe. And then they
Possibly.
were compiled
a lot of
together?
them did at the time, yes. A lot of stuff was Tintin and everything was, Sherlock Holmes as well. Everything used to be published in monthly magazines.
Yeah, periodicals.
And then compiled, or newspapers. The Strand magazine was where Sherlock Holmes was published.
So, yeah, no,
and
I think
I'm not sure about 20,000 miles, but yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, pretty sure it was. So there's lots of things in that periodical thing that would be like, there would be one article that would come out, I imagine, because I haven't read them, but I imagine that would be like, when they get trapped under an iceberg. And then next week, something else would happen. They'd fight the giant squid.
No, that's how Tintin is. If you read the Tintin comics, every page ends with a bit of a joke or cliffhanger or something's coming. What is it? I'll come back next week to see who's around the corner. So every page sort of ends with a little bit of a joke. But no, 20,000. I said 20,000 miles earlier.
Yes.
The thing has that's a German story. That's me German. It's 20,000 miles under the sea, under the oceans. And I've seen leagues.
20,000 leagues I've read is equivalent to 80,000 kilometres. So it's not how deep, it's how far.
Yeah, I always thought it was how deep.
Far they travel.
It's how far they travel.
Nearly twice the circumference of the planet.
More than twice I've read. 2.5 times around the planet. And in the book, they show the travels. Jules Verne made a little map of the world and shows a little dotted line of where they travel. They basically go around in circles in the Pacific, and then they go into the Mediterranean from the Pacific through the Indian Ocean into the Mediterranean, because this book was written in 1870 something, and they're right in there how there's a plan by Mr. Such and Such to build a canal through in the Suez region, and they're getting the funding to build a channel. And Captain Nemo goes, well, I don't need that because there's actually already a connection that's underwater, and we can take the submarine through. And so he goes he goes through an underwater tunnel, high-speed race. It only goes one direction because water apparently always flows from the Indian Ocean or Red Sea or wherever we are into the Mediterranean. Yeah. It's it's like 1,000 kilometers an hour race. They're just evading stalactites and rocks as they squeeze their submarine through, and then they pop out the other end and they come Mediterranean. And then they go into the Atlantic, and then they go down to Antarctica. They go underneath Antarctica. They want to be the first people to reach the South Pole.
Yes.
So they go underneath the ice. And then when they reach the center, they sort of pop up through the ice and take possession of the land.
See, this is part of what I think is the periodical nature of the story, that there was these sort of topical things that were happening, and every month Jules Verne would be, I don't know, reading other things, or maybe he had a plan from the start, and he'd bring, something new, Suez Canal, or he'd bring something new to the story. So that was a bit of a trouble for the film because they couldn't really...
Couldn't do Monster of the Week.
Yeah, they couldn't construct the story like that. So the film is, they're going to be traveling around under the ocean in a submarine, but it's an escape film. Is the sort of, I don't know, the overall thing that they were going for. All right, so that's the sort of framing of the story, that they essentially get captured by Captain Nemo and they have to escape.
Same in the book, though. It's always all pervasive throughout the book that where can we escape? How can we get out of here? Okay. And it's the conflict between Ned Land and Aronnax. Yeah. Aronnax is very conflicted. He wants to escape. He sees that this knowledge that he is learning here needs to go to the world. He wants to publish. He needs to escape, but maybe tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, just not today. We still got so many things to learn and so many things to see. Whereas the opposing is Ned Land, who is constantly every opportunity he sees, he wants to escape. And the third of our three captives, who is Aronnax's butler or assistant, he is pretty much a non-entity both in the film and the books. In the books, even less. In the film, Peter Lorre plays Conseil, and Conseil doesn't really do much in the film, does he? Is there I think at one point he rows away the rowboat all by himself, and Ned Land has to chase up, otherwise he gets killed.
He's kind of like the character, the offsider to the doctor, the sort of person that says, "What is that, Doctor?" And then the doctor says, "Well, I'm glad you asked," and goes on to explain.
In the books, he is his assistant, and Jules Verne consulted marine biologists a lot. He read a lot of books on marine biology, and he learned a lot about, what kind of fish live in the Atlantic, what kind of fish live in the Indian. And so he will devote a whole page in the book just listing the names of the fishes that are passing by the window. And it gets a bit tedious to read this. But he does the same thing with other of his books. He devotes pages and pages just describing how somebody packs their luggage and what they put in the luggage. But in Conseil's case, in the book, he's exclusively there. Every time they see a fish, Conseil says, "This is the order, this is the genus, this is the species, this is the kingdom." Yeah. And he lists the scientific clade, essentially, that how it gets classified.
It's almost
And
a
that's
bit
all he
Tolkien in nature, isn't it? We get caught up in the language and the places and the names.
Yeah, and the
things
map.
And the map.
Yeah. Well, Verne had knowledge, and he just wanted to put the knowledge
Yeah.
down on paper, whether it's interesting or not.
All right, so the story that we're checking out is the version from Disney. I liked the start. The start of it was we're on the ocean, and there's a foggy night, and there's a steam-powered kind of tall ship off in the distance, and sort of up through the water comes two green glowing eyes, and it picks up speed and starts to move through the water really quickly, and there's this really cool sound effect, this sort of sound effect as it comes through and smashes into the boat. So they start off with a bang, which is pretty cool, because that leaves you with the question of, well, what's going on here? What's all this about? But then they move to San Francisco, I think, where they're collecting people to go off on an expedition to find the monster that is stalking the seas off San Francisco. And that's where we meet Ned Land, who is a Canadian harpoonist.
Yes, played by Kirk Douglas.
Yes.
And somewhere in his rider for the film is I've got to be able to get my shirt off as many times as possible, which I think is the standard for any film that includes Kirk Douglas.
Macho man.
Yeah, and he also in his rider is, and I have to be able to punch at least 5 people in the face.
At least one person about 16 times.
Which he achieves in the first minute of the film.
That's true.
And I have to have beautiful women in my arms.
Yes. Which he also
Because
achieves in the first minute of the film.
They get that clause out of the way within seconds of...
Yes.
All right.
So this scene was specifically written at Kirk Douglas' request. You're absolutely right, Dave. That is he was at the height of his career. He was, famous for being a macho type fighter guy, real man. And there's not a single woman in this book. There's not a single woman in this film. So they wrote him. He said, I have to have women around me. I have to show that I'm a manly guy, and I have to punch somebody. So they wrote this scene at a late stage and filmed it in San Francisco. It was just so Kirk Douglas could indeed get his fist into somebody's face.
Yep.
Does feel a little bit awkward to start with that.
Yep.
I suppose they're contriving that they're hiring people, and it's kind of going to be Ned Land, Kirk Douglas they're going to hire. But then they swiftly move on to Aronnax, who's in another room, and then they we start meeting that character. So I don't know.
So the premise of that whole opening sequence is to lay the foundation that society believes that there is a sea monster that is claiming these ships. And the brawl that Kirk Douglas gets to punch somebody in the face that happens in the street happens as a result of one person trying to find conscripts for the next ship voyage. No one wants to join, and he's offering double the money, and then another guy gets up with an old sailor with an injured leg to tell the tale of the last, he was the lone survivor of the last one, and then a brawl breaks out, and Kirk Douglas gets to roll around in the mud and punch a few faces, and then he gets carted off. But we also then, when we're introduced to Aronnax, it's about how he needs to get to Saigon, I believe it is.
Yes, Saigon.
He needs to get to Saigon and can't get out of America, right? Because nobody's sailing because of the monster and stuff. And then he sort of walks out frustrated. But yeah, that whole opening sequence sets up the premise of society believes there's a monster. He's from the French. Where is he from, Tom, in the film?
He's a French person from some
French university or something, or science commission or something.
He's a marine specialist.
He's a marine specialist.
He's written books. He is he's a world-renowned expert on marine animals, and which is, later in the film, this is what makes them all survive. That Nemo has heard of Aronnax and has read his books and finds them woefully inadequate, and says, come on board my ship and I'll show you the true beauty of the ocean. This is Paul Lucas, and playing Aronnax. And Paul Lucas is a name that I hadn't heard before because Kirk Douglas is well known. James Mason, we've had James Mason on our show before in other Jules Verne movies. Journey to the Center of the Earth. Peter Lorre, famous, and so Paul Lucas sort of stands out as the unknown, and I've never heard of him. I looked him up, and he's been the only other film that I heard of was The Lady Vanishes, which is apparently, Dan says, a really, really good Hitchcock film.
Oh, so you're telling me you didn't catch the Elvis film Fun in Acapulco that also starred Paul Lucas?
As a main character? Is he playing Elvis?
I believe he's... yes, he's actually playing Elvis in that film, Tom. Yes, no, you're right. There's not a lot in his background. I think he was in the Man from U.N.C.L.E. TV series. His face is not that unfamiliar. He does have a familiar face, but yes, as a main role, and he is certainly a leading role in this film. There's not a lot to remember of his filmography at that level.
All right, so moving along, we get introduced to Aronnax, and he's in his up in his apartment, and they're getting organised, and they're mumbling about how they can't get to the Orient, to Singapore, or wherever he was going. So he's got a bit of a problem to solve when he gets a knock at the door, and somebody at the other side of the door introduces himself as, I don't know, Joe Blow from the US government.
Yes, there's probably a name that they always use. The CIA always uses John Smith or something. Yeah,
John
Mr. Smith or something like
I've
that.
forgotten what his name was.
But he's a very Mr. Smith type character.
He's very refined fellow, so obviously he's not a scruffy barbarian. He's clearly a refined fellow, which that's proof enough to me that he's from the US government.
Yes.
So anyway, he walks into the room and he says, "Hey, look, you're Mr. Aronnax. You're trying to get to Singapore. How about you come along on one of our boats? We're hunting the monster. You can go and check it out and help us find out what's going on."
Legitimise the endeavour.
Yeah, do some science,
basically
maybe.
Put a scientific name to what's going on,
yeah.
so that people will sail again, basically.
So that's how he gets on the boat. So we then just cut straight to everybody's on the ship.
Yep.
And we're in the
including Ned Nand, played by Kirk Douglas, who has been taken on. Ned Land, sorry. He's been taken on, obviously, as the harpooner.
Yes, the harpoonist.
Because they're...
And entertainer. And ship's clown.
That's right, yes.
Ship's guitar.
And only guy in a red and white stripy shirt in a sea of blue shirted people.
Yes.
Dark blue. It's at night. They're all wearing dark blue. He sticks out. He pops like me in my room right now. It's just the one thing, and everything else is dark.
Blonde hair.
And if everyone was wearing a red and white shirt, he'd take his off.
Yes.
So he's well and truly established as a celebrity by that stage.
So we get a 15-second montage of them sailing up and down the Atlantic, and then the captain calls them into the room and says, "Well, we can't find it. We're going home."
Yes, they were playing. I think he was putting in his journal that the captain's plan was to sail a strategic route of box-shaped
squares. Yes, in nautical fashion.
Yeah.
In nautical fashion.
You mean a grid pattern?
The ocean into grids and then
they're going to search in a grid pattern.
No, it's a strategic nautical, square
box-shaped search pattern.
Yes.
So just as they're about to give up, does Ned Land do his song? I think he does his song.
We should mention
first.
it. Not a lot of the films that we do break out into a full-blown song piece.
Yes, it is interesting that it's not really a musical, but it's got a musical number in it.
It's got a musical number in it, and it doesn't qualify as a musical because there's no magic music that comes from somewhere in the background. Like
okay.
normally, if you watch Grease,
Yes.
right?
There's no
There's
band.
a band.
Yes.
You know, where's the music come from? But in this film, he provides the music with his ukulele / small guitar, and the singing and the choreography.
Yes.
And he's backed up by various singers that were other Navy types surrounding him. But it was quite a catchy. You could tell that in the day, it probably went okay.
Yeah, it's a little sea shanty type
Yep.
type song. I think it got an independent release. It was actually released on a. You could buy it down the shops.
And Kirk Douglas was pretty awkward about it. He was, that's not what he usually does in movies. He does not break into song in Spartacus. But he took lessons from Harper Goff, who is the set designer and plays a small role like a minister somewhere in this film. Somewhere he is. But I've heard the name before, Harper Goff. So he pops up every now and then. He was set designer on Casablanca. He was. He designed the whole way. I mean, he's the guy who got the Oscar, right?
Yes.
They've
got two Oscars. Remember, one is for the art design, the art direction, and one is for the special effects. So yeah.
Oh yeah. So I guess he's in the art department and he was doing this, but he might have gotten both. I don't know. He's but yeah, he's a famous guy, and he was bringing the training to Kirk Douglas, and later on in his life, Kirk Douglas would perform that song many more times.
All right.
At parties. He started taking to the ukulele, and started playing the guitar, and
Okay. So it's like a one-hit wonder.
Initially, not quite certain that he should be doing this, as if it would be good for his macho image if he doesn't sing properly, and then took the lessons and sang properly, and wooed everyone.
The rest is history. So once the song is finished and everybody's finished that and they're just about to go home, ship ahoy off the starboard bow. And they all look to the starboard bow, and on the horizon there is not only a ship, but the ship's on fire. There's a sort of explosion.
Yes, that's right.
And it's dark and it's at night and it's gloomy. So the captain says, well, we better go over and help him. So they head on over. And then I think the ship blows up, right?
It blows up the moment
quickly.
they look over with their what's the my brain's drawing a blank.
Telescope.
Telescope.
You did the action of a telescope. There is only one action associated with a telescope.
The moment the captain looked over at the ship that was spotted by the man in the crow's nest, it blew up in front of his telescope.
That's pacing. That's good
yes.
pacing in the movie.
Yes.
Story needs to continue.
Fortuitous. So they head over to and they man the boats ready for rescue. What do they find?
They find that in the water there is some dark green glowing eyes.
And no survivors.
No survivors. Yeah, we don't have to worry about picking up anybody. So there's the dark green glowing eyes, and it's the monster.
Yep.
It's the monster. So everybody's like, oh, it is real after all. The monster, it's over there.
Blow the shit out of it.
Yeah, let's shoot the crap out of it. Because they're in a warship.
Yes,
so
they are. They've got big guns.
When you're a
They got
hammer,
cannons.
when you're a
They're
hammer,
impressive
everything's a
cannons,
nail.
aren't they, Tom?
Giant 30-pound or whatever they are, huge cannons that they've got there, shooting at the thing. And then Ned Land is supposed to throw his little harpoon as well.
Oh, yes, just for good measure. But
And in order to do it, he goes into a lifeboat.
Yes.
Into a wobbly lifeboat.
On his own.
Yes.
On his
Which
own with
was-
no oars.
Which was a little bit foreshadowy.
Yeah.
But I imagined that he just needed to get the perfect angle, and it just happened to be in the lifeboat.
Now, from
Wobbly
a-
lifeboat. Was
From a
perfect.
narrative perspective, it's the device to get him off the ship.
Yes.
So the
And
he's
also-
off the ship initially in his little lifeboat with his harpoon, and the mega guns trying to blast the monster, and one of the shells hit the monster.
There's a
or
little
at
bit more.
least-
There's a bit of extra nuance there, and that is that. Remember that the gruff American captain, who was like, "Yeah, let's shoot the crap out of it, America," right? But one of the gunners stops firing,
Yes.
and he says, "Well, that's enough. He's turned his tail, Captain.
Yes.
He's heading off." And of course, the American captain
Yeah.
No, shoot him in the butt.
Yes. Shoot his tail then.
Yes, shoot him in the butt.
Which they do, and successfully cause some damage, but not so much damage that it can't turn around and start making a V line for the ship.
So we will find out that, as a matter of honour, shooting Captain Nemo in the butt when he was leaving probably wasn't the thing to do.
Yes.
So, yeah, he kind of got a bit stroppy about that.
And they ram the ship.
And
that causes the professor and his manservant to be thrown into the water.
They did jump into the water rather quickly.
He did jump. He jumped after because the professor falls in, and the manservant, he has obligations. He's being, there's a salary that he receives every month, so he has he has an obligation to his master and has to jump after him.
Yep,
it's in the contract.
Yeah,
it's in the contract.
Yes.
So for some reason, only our three heroes, Ned, Aronnax, and Offsider, are in the water. They escape, and they're in the fog.
They're the only survivors. Or we don't really see the ship blow up or sink or anything. It just sort of limps off.
It limps off. They hope for can they come back and fetch us? And no, it's too badly damaged.
Yeah.
They're even holding on. Aronnax and Conseil are holding on to a bit of mast. There's sail on there. So that ship lost an entire bit of mast.
Yeah.
And it just sort of disappears off into the distance.
Yes.
So, I don't know, a bit of time passes and they're in the fog. And then they drift closer to a large, spiky-looking shape in the fog. And it is nothing less than the submarine. The monster.
Yeah.
And so they essentially kind of climb onto it. It's like a little island. They sort of clamber onto it. But nobody appears to be about. It looks like it's empty and it's quiet.
All the doors are open.
All the doors are open, as you do in a submarine. You leave all the doors open.
Nobody about. The professor
They do leave the doors open. Sorry to interject again, but and this is from the book and not mentioned at all in the film. Where do they get their oxygen? Where they're breathing air from, right? They don't have air tanks, or they have a small amount of air in tanks, but they have to surface every 24 hours. And open the hatches to let fresh air in, and then they close the hatches, and then they go for another 24 hours under sea. So the boat is generally on the surface most of the time. They just swim on the surface with the hatches open and fresh air comes in. And if they have to go under, they close the hatches, and then the inside volume has about 24 hours. And if they, as they do later when they're under the Antarctic, they open their reserve tanks, and they squeeze about 48 hours out of it, but that's it. So yeah, they open the hatches, but the weird thing is the ship is completely empty, and these three guys have the run of the boat. They can go into every room and check it all out.
Starts out with just the professor and his manservant, and the professor is very quick to declare that this is a submarine, without anybody ever seen a submarine before. He was able to assess that it goes underwater, and they go inside and start looking around. Meanwhile, Ned rows up in his little boat. He's upside down. He's actually rowing the boat upside down because it had capsized in the initial battle, and he was standing on it, paddleboard, stand-up paddleboard style, and he rows over to it, and he was calling out, and I think the manservant heard him calling and goes up on deck while the professor's downstairs poking around inside the empty sub. I do find it a little bit... we do find out, which we'll discuss in a moment, where is everyone?
Yes, where are the crew?
And then when we find out that the crew is in fact underwater, burying their dead, probably from the previous night's battle. When the people in the underwater suits come back to the Nautilus, there are dozens of crew.
Yeah, suddenly there's more crew than there was.
Suddenly there are a lot more people on the Nautilus than there were before.
Those were cool suits. And the visual design on that film is cool. It's a cool looking Nautilus. Yeah. In the book, the Nautilus is described as cigar shaped and smooth. So it's just a smooth cylinder. And they designed a cool looking submarine. There's awesome suits with weird, hoses going up to the foreheads and big helmets and the air tanks at the back. That's a memorable
They got
little
an Oscar
design.
for the art design for a reason.
Yeah.
And they didn't just design; they designed everything.
Yeah.
And it's got this cool steampunk. If you're going to define what steampunk is, this movie's art design, that's got to be at the core of what steampunk is.
Walt Disney wanted to make it initially as an animated. You remember, this is a Walt Disney film, and they didn't do that many live actions. They did a lot of animated stuff. And so with this one as well. And when Walt Disney saw the very detailed, realistic-looking drawings and sketches and paintings of the film, he said, "Oh my God, this is going to look so awesome in live action. Let's see if we can pull it off."
Well, Rick Legardo, who's regularly on the show, was actually lined up to be on this show. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. But one of the reasons he was very keen to do the show is he's very into steampunk. And this film famously has
thesis on it.
That's correct. Yes, and this film famously is a go-to for reference in the steampunk world. And when you
they've got
look
brass, they've got those dials everywhere.
Lots of
There's
riveted
a pipe organ
surfaces
inside it.
Yeah.
There's a fountain
Gauges,
inside.
lots of gauges and dials and riveted
bookcases.
surfaces. Yeah.
Everything's riveted, gigantic, big, heavy rivets. All right, so they wander around inside and they open up one of the windows and they see that there's a funeral going on outside with people under the water walking on the bottom of the sea with pipes and everything.
Yeah, and a coffin.
Yeah. So they're burying somebody at sea, like in the sea. Anyway, they those people return. And they get, and they kind of get found out that these people are on the ship, and so this is now they meet Captain Nemo.
That's correct.
So Aronnax and Ned. So Aronnax and Ned are kind of polar opposites, as Tom was sort of saying. Aronnax is this sort of science guy. He's a bit sort of stoic and a bit unemotional and logical, and then Ned's all sort of,
He's punching faces.
He's punching faces. There you go. That's his character. So they don't sort of hit it off too well. And essentially, Captain Nemo is going to chuck him off the ship. They're going to stick him on the back of the ship and chuck him off.
And just
sail away.
Yeah, literally
abandon them,
submerge, and leave them.
Except for Aronnax, he wants to keep Aronnax on board.
That's right.
And Aronnax says, "Well."
He wants to keep Aronnax because he knows Aronnax. Nemo has heard of him and he knows that he's
read his book.
Yeah, he's even got his book on his shelf. He pulls his book off the shelf.
And he has a plan that we'll touch on later as to why he wants to keep
not in the
him around.
film. Oh, well, do you tell me what the plan is? No, tell me now, because I was just going to talk.
Well, later on, he does reveal that one of the reasons he kept him on board was that he is contemplating releasing his technology to the rest of society.
Yes, it's the same thing in the book as well.
Yeah.
I didn't remember it was in the film too, but yes.
Yes, it is. But yes, Nemo gives the professor an ultimatum: stay with me or die with your friends. And the professor says, "I'll die with my friends."
Yes,
and goes up on the deck, and the three of them are hanging on while they're submerging. And just in the nick of time, just as the water washes them into the ocean, Nemo calls an all stop and mentions later that it was a test. It was a test of moral character, and the professor passed.
So why did he do the test? We don't find out until later in the movie. But why did he do the test?
It was faith in mankind.
He's essentially trying to find an honourable chap.
Yes. Are they worth helping? Is mankind worth helping?
Yes. Yeah. All right. So when they get back on, they go to dinner with Captain Nemo.
Yes.
So you remember the dinner scene?
Yes.
Yes.
So
the smoking jacket and.
Yes, they have this elegant dinner. And
very elegant dinner and a seal.
Yes.
And a seal.
A live seal at the dinner table.
And they serve them up a bunch of food, and they're like eating the food, and they're like, "Oh, this lamb is absolutely fabulous," And Captain Nemo, says, "Nope, that's not lamb. That's sea cucumber or something or other." And they get a little bit revolted. What else were they eating? They were eating all sorts of
It was drinking cream. Ned Land wants the cream, and then that turns out to be the milk from sperm whales.
It was the milk from sperm whales, which instantly had me thinking, how have they milked a sperm whale?
My thoughts.
Well, you've seen Luke Skywalker in the blue milking scene, right? Something like that.
My
Giant
thoughts.
teeth in your presser.
You have to catch up to the whale. You've got to hold the bucket in the right place.
My thoughts was milking a sperm whale. You'd want to hope that the person who does it actually knows what they're doing. And actually ensures that they get a female
Yes,
sperm
that's
whale.
right.
But anyway.
Well, remember in the books they cut them in half and they hate the sperm whales.
Oh,
They
right.
kill them all, so they probably just sift through the leftovers and
It's
take
milk
what?
in here.
There's
They have
milk in the bag,
seaweed
yeah.
cigars, which I thought were pretty cool.
So the
All right.
premise they set up is that everything that he relies on
Yes.
is from the ocean,
Yes.
and nothing land bound comes onto the ship, sort of thing. Everything they survive on comes from the ocean.
So he's totally in sync with the ocean. And the next little segment of the movie is they kind of prove that. So they go on an underwater food collecting / hunting expedition.
Hunt forage.
Yes. So, they all don the suits, and I think even Ned and what's his name? What's the other?
Conseil?
Conseil.
Ned and Conseil, they go off together, yeah.
Yeah.
They join. They have a bit of a slapstick underwater, and they're trying to get used to their suits and the weightlessness of the heavy boots.
Yes.
They fall over, and
They definitely have quite a few scenes in the film where they are this slapstick sort of pair. Even when they're later on chased by natives, cannibals, there is a slapstick nature. I think he goes to row and the oar doesn't catch the water and they stumble and fall over. But there's definitely sequences throughout the film where they're the comedy sort of aspect, the physical comedy aspect to it. I think he Ned punches him in the face at one point, and then so I think he says
That's how men become friends.
That's right. And
They
the council
punch
says,
each
"I
other."
thought we were friends." Yeah, of course we're friends. Here, hit me, and then he offers his chin and he hits him in the guts instead.
Yeah.
But it's that physical comedy type thing. There's no one else in the film that is actually making any laughs at all throughout the film except for those two.
Comic relief a bit. Yeah.
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 The crew never speaks a word, right? There's no
Yes.
crewman ever to say anything. They just stand around
There's
with their arms
one.
crossed in front of the chest and with their little mustache
There's
beards
one,
and little goatees.
the big,
Oh, the first mate.
his first mate, the bigger guy, the guy
Yeah.
that sort of stands out bigger and takes on Ned later on with another
And-
face punching exercise.
And you mentioned Ned Land in the red and white shirt earlier, standing out from all the crew. Nemo's out doing the exact same thing. His crew is all wearing dark blue uniforms, and he's the only one in a white turtleneck. And his first mate.
Yeah,
They're the two standout characters.
yeah.
So they.
In the book, the crew speak an invented language. Everyone speaks this invented language
I vaguely
that
remember
nobody can understand.
It's very
And-
Tolkien.
It is very Tolkien, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. So
And it's never clear, sorry to interrupt again, but it's never clear how many crew members there actually are. Here we see more, here in the film, we see more crew members than we ever see in the book. They're always hidden. There's always multiple corridors in the submarine that you can walk through. And they never, at one point, ever see more than 3 or 4 people at the same time. Unless, there's a burial scene where we see a few more. But it's not clear if there are 12 people on board or 100.
he does have an island that they're heading to ultimately, where there's like a factory on the island, so that maybe there's more people
Yeah,
there.
that's his one concession to the mainland is that he does need to stop for repairs eventually. And he needs a secret lair.
So they collect some food. They also happen to find treasure at the bottom of the ocean in
Yes,
a
Ned.
sunken ship.
Ned and
They just see
Ned
that
and the
ship in
manservant.
horizon.
Yes,
Yeah,
look,
yeah.
oh,
Walk
look.
over there.
And there's
Oh, look, there's a ship. Oh, look, there's a chest. Oh, it's full
it's
of.
full of pearls.
Yes.
Oh, there's a shark.
Yes.
As an underwater specialist, Tom, what type of shark was that? Is it
That's
common?
some nurse shark. over
Yeah,
there.
it looked
very-
like a fish tank shark.
Yeah.
It was an accident. So this is filmed off the Bahamas, I think.
Bahamas, yeah.
So this is actual underwater photography.
This
These
is also
are actual
cutting edge
dives,
stuff as
actual
well.
suits. It's fantastic stuff. Yeah. So they're definitely acting underwater in those suits. They're fully functioning, and they're collecting all their little crabs, and they're collecting all their mussels and shells and putting them in baskets behind their back. And then this shark just swims through the shot. And this is accident. This is an accidental film. This nurse shark came through, and they then said, "Oh, this is cool. Let's film some more of that and make it into a shark scene." They're handling turtles. They're carrying turtles, holding them by their flippers and dragging them.
I thought they were dead turtles for a moment.
No, they're live turtles.
But yes, no, they are. You can see a shot where one of the turtles sort of opens its mouth and
I wrote it down in my notes here as they spent some time annoying turtles.
Yes.
Like they had one flipper each, and you could see the turtle was like, "Guys, bugger off."
And God knows what was in line for that turtle, given the menu on the previous evening. I'm not sure whether they're going to milk it or chop it up or blend it.
He builds himself a guitar out of a shuttle.
Yes,
turtle shell later.
Did see that later. But yes, underwater shooting, but that was like cutting edge stuff.
It was a laser gun,
cutting edge.
wasn't it?
What laser gun?
Didn't he shoot the shark with some sort of zap gun?
Like it. They have zap guns. They have electric. So
it was
again,
electric
in the
gun.
story. In the story,
it's electric. It's a story. They have the bullets. They have little cartridges that are sort of electrically charged, and so you just have to nick an animal to the skin a little bit. You get a shock, and they sort of go flaccid and fall to the ground.
Right.
So they have these special bullets that are highly effective. And here in the movie, it looks like a laser gun.
But the filming was cutting edge. They're right on the cutting edge of, underwater cameras and scuba gear. They're really pushing the envelope.
There was no wire work or it was underwater. They were walking around underwater, which made for some funny motions. It's hard to look tough when you're trying.
There was some wet,
heavy boots,
dry for wet shooting.
Was there really
as well? Yeah, that you wouldn't be able to tell.
Really?
I think there's some close-ups.
When they're looking through the window?
Yeah, of Nemo sort of looking, the close-ups of the heroes.
When you see the face-ups, it looks like it's in front of a rear projected screen.
Yeah.
They also only had one anamorphic lens. So this is, I think, Disney's first film shooting in VistaVision or in some really widescreen.
It's wide as hell.
And they had to borrow... that was coming. That was the cunning thing at the time. Television was coming, and cinemas had to do something to keep people going to the movies. So they invented this ultra widescreen. And one way of doing really widescreen movies was using squashy lenses, the anamorphic squashy lenses. And the production of those lenses was just not keeping up with demand. So Disney had to they had one lens, and they had to film this film with this one anamorphic lens. So I'm just surprised. They have to, for the underwater scenes, the lens is now underwater. There's no second unit shooting somewhere else.
And the turnaround, I mean, you can't, they're shooting on film, so the film has to be processed before they can watch the dailies.
This film, it went way over budget, time budget, and also money budget. It took much longer to film than they expected, and it was the most expensive Hollywood film at the all $9 million.
Yeah.
It's
$9 million.
And that was not budgeted. That was not budgeted for $9 million.
All right, so they get back, and Nemo annoys Ned Land because he just uses treasure as ballast.
Yes, Ned wants to go back for the treasure they had to dump with the shark battle.
Yeah.
And Nemo reveals that, don't worry about treasure, I've got a cupboard full of it here, we use it for ballast. And Ned all of a sudden is very interested in the contents of the cupboard.
Yes. But they're going to go on a shore expedition next up. And the shore expedition, they're going to take Aranax and Nemo. And they have a little sort of a little boat that sort of detaches from the back of the sub.
I like the design of that.
Oh, it was all that little boat even had a sliding cover so that the seats would sort of melded into the.
Yeah, it was really well designed.
But also because they can actually launch it from underwater. They can launch that boat when they're submerged.
Oh,
you can access it from inside the boat, and then you can just pop it up to the surface. Yeah.
Very cool. So on the island, there is lots of what I suppose is slave labor. People mining and digging.
Yes, they're gathering or loading. What was it?
Phosphorus to make gunpowder. I guess
various chemicals onto a ship,
something like that,
which would ultimately become gunpowder and go into weapons.
So Nemo's there and Aronnax, and he tells Nemo tells Aronnax about how, this is part of his mission, that he was
one of those people. He was one of those slaves.
Including his crew were also one of those slaves, and they've escaped. And so as part of his mission is to stop this trade, sink those ships. And also
vengeance and hate is part of, he reveals as well. That's what drives him, or at least that's what the professor takes away from it.
So I think we also find out that his family was killed as well by these people. So you really start to understand his
wife and
motivations.
child were tortured to death in an attempt to gain his secrets.
Yeah, okay. So that
and we
ends...
see those secrets, don't we? Sorry, yeah, you're getting to that.
No. Well,
the tour of the boat.
Yes, they do a tour of the boat. So I've already seen some of his secrets, but the way that he powers the ship is the... Now, Tom, you said that in the original book it was electricity that was powering the ship.
Electricity which they generated by burning coal.
Oh.
Yeah. And so then, everything is electrical. This was 1870s. There was no nuclear power or anything, even on the horizon remotely. So there was Jules Verne could not predict any of that. But here in this film, it is intimated that it is nuclear. Yes.
Possibly,
still
I would
battery.
Describe it as atomic powered. Yeah,
it's a reaction.
Yeah. They've got this big glowing furnace thing.
I believe it's still inferred that it is electricity, but it is electricity generated by a reaction.
But it just goes with the theme of the movie. There's lots of cutting edge science for when it was either made or written. Whether it's Jules Verne cutting edge science or whether it's 1954, atomic bomb cutting edge science. And then I think the ship runs aground.
Well, the ship attacks the ship that was being loaded by the slaves. The professor, Ned, and the manservant is sent to their rooms.
Conseil, yeah.
Right, sent to their rooms.
Yep.
Right, because Nemo plans to attack and sink the ship that was being loaded by the slaves, and proceeds to do exactly that.
That's right.
And then the professor it's revealed exactly who this Captain Nemo really is, and that he's driven by vengeance, and he's a madman. And I think Ned even says as such that this guy's a Fruit Loop.
And so Aronnax is a bit torn, as Tom was saying, between whether we should turn this guy in or whether we should use his powers for good.
Mankind needs what Nemo has, and we have to almost not rock the boat and not call him out on his evilness.
Yep. So there's a big moral discussion.
Yes.
And Ned doesn't like him, and Ned thinks he's
Ned doesn't
murdered.
care about mankind.
Yeah, Ned
He only cares about what's going on right in front of him.
He cares about Ned.
And is it in punching distance?
Yes, that's right.
The weird rocked off is not nature of Nemo is shown when they sink the boat. Because what is Nemo doing when they are sinking the boat?
He's playing his pipe organ.
He's playing the organ like a madman. while he's murdering the people on the ship.
I think they actually repeated a similar scene in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movie with Davy Jones, and Davy Jones is playing the pipe organ in the middle of an attack.
Okay.
And I love the track. I love the song that Nemo is playing in this, and we've even on a way back episode of Voyage of the Geek, we looked at some of those music videos where particles are driven by sound, and, with and one of the songs was a piece of music, and you know the name of it. It's what's the name of the track that he's playing? The song that he's playing in this film?
Toccata and Fugue.
Fugue. That's it. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So that piece of music is the music used in the classic arcade video game Gyrus.
Yes.
Where you go around the edge of the screen and you go through to Uranus and then Pluto and then all the different planets. It's just a sort of a cylindrical version of Space Invaders sort of thing, and you go for it. And I was hooked on that when I was a kid. So every time I hear that,
you get flashbacks.
Yeah, I get flashbacks. And it's a great piece of music for an evil nemesis to be playing. Either in a haunted mansion or a Bond villain or something. It's just the perfect piece of music to play.
It's like Ride of the Valkyries, but not quite as cheesy. It's just a little bit more serious. But yeah, it makes a perfect thing because he's playing it and he's like sweating and the ships, you know, they're crashing.
And it's
into
booming
each
through the
other.
ship and people can hear it. And at one point there, he's just hitting chords. You know, I don't even think it's the right music. You know, he's just sort of punching chords and he's showing how maniacal he is in that moment.
So another plot point that happens around about this time is that Ned's still trying to escape, and essentially they do a message in a bottle.
Many messages
Yeah,
in many bottles.
and just he's been chucking them out the hatches, you know, just throwing them around willy nilly.
What's the source of the bottles, Tom?
Well, Nemo has a collection of marine specimens that he kept in alcohol. Now, this is embalming alcohol, 92% ethanol. It's certainly something that you will make you blind if you drink the quantities that Ned Land is imbibing.
So Ned realizes it's an alcohol and starts collecting the alcohol, throwing away the specimens, and putting messages in the bottles.
Yes, drinking the alcohol.
Which is a genius. It's an ingenious plan, except for the message in a bottle time frame, with the plan to sort of alert the authorities and meet us at the destination. So by this time, Ned has learnt that the destination is Volcania.
Yes, they've found out that he's got a secret base in a volcano.
Inside a volcano.
This movie is just the basis for so many other movies, you know, like James Bond and Indiana Jones and all sorts of things. So the next stage is that they go to the Cannibal Island. They go to Cannibal Island.
Well, they get stuck on a reef.
That's right. They get stuck on the reef, and so why not pop over to the Cannibal Island? Conseil says he can go and collect a few. Says he can go and collect a few specimens, and Ned says, "Yeah, sure, I'll go and wander around and help him." Of course, he's going to try and escape, but the island is full of cannibals. Of course.
Yes.
And so Nemo says, "Stay on the beach. Don't go into the forest." So they land on the beach, and of course Ned is wanting to escape. You know,
Well, his motives were two-pronged.
oh, that's right.
It was escape
Yes.
and chicks.
Let's find some girls.
He wanted to find some native chicks
Yes.
and to escape.
That's right. So in search of both of those, he wanders off into the forest.
And finds skulls on sticks.
Yes, that's standard.
Run away, and you can see it on his face. It's a good moment in the film. It's like, okay, run away. He proceeds to just run back out on the beach, only to find that Conseil is in the boat, already rowing. He's already left.
Yes.
Well, he assumed that Ned was escaping, so he said, well, I'm by myself. In his defense, he just wanted to get back to the boat as fast as possible.
Yes.
So as soon as Ned jumps back into the lifeboat, the entire Papuan Navy turns up.
Yes. First, they're just running with spears that I'm not sure whether those spears are specifically Papuan in design.
Okay.
They look very Zulu in nature. I'm just not sure. I might be incorrect. But yes, when you think, they've just got to get in the boat, and then the natives, they can only swim. But then out of the trees come all of these big, massive pontooned boats with crews of about 12, and they're powering like they were about to catch up to these two guys.
They had, you know, there must be like 30 of them, all full of guys. So
with spears and bows and arrows,
and all the decorations and feathers and face paint and stuff.
Yes. So they, the Ned and is it Conseil or Conseil?
Conseil.
Well, Ned and Conseil make it back in just enough time and go into the Nautilus, but Nemo won't shut the door.
Yes, crazy Nemo.
The actors who played all the natives, they're wearing all the war paint, and they would write funny little sentences onto their foreheads because they knew it wouldn't be ever shown on camera. So they have, I ate Joe, and eat at Joe's and stuff like that written on their forehead.
Yeah.
So they're having a fun time playing hooga hooga hooga.
So what's Nemo's plan as to why he didn't close the door?
Because he has the power of electricity.
Yep.
Well, first he says you trespassed on their land. They have all the right to trespass on ours. Mm-hmm. Let him come. He's just playing the superior
Arsehole.
Yeah. No. He was saying that's fair. That's fair.
Yep.
Followed by immediately pressing the big red button on the
and
console,
zapping everybody that was on the deck,
which charges everybody on the deck.
Yes.
All right, so they all get zapped off, and then immediately, as soon as that's finished, a warship comes around the corner.
That's right. Yeah.
A big giant warship, and they're stuck on the reef kind of still, so they put it in reverse and try and get themselves off the reef, and they just kind of manage to get themselves off the reef, and the ship shoots them
It's
in
firing
the
at
side,
them. Yep.
and then the ship cruises over the top of them.
They only they're damaged, and they go deeper than they've ever gone, that any man has ever gone before beneath
Now,
the
this
ocean.
was a bit of a weakness, I thought, in the movie. They didn't really milk the going down deep. They
Should have
just
been some of those rivets should have probably
they have
popped.
to have popped rivets. They have to have those sprinkler things that come out of pipes that wet everybody.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But they did take on a lot of water.
took on a lot of
so
water.
one of the shells from the ship did hit the Nautilus, and there was a lot of water rushing in. And I think at one point Ned, who was locked in his cell, had to escape his cell, his cabin. And so there was a bit of tense sequences through that process, but Nemo was able to. And I think the drive shaft.
That's when the squid attacks. That's when it has to escape out of.
Well,
the
the
cell.
drive shaft, they have to repair the drive shaft, which it gets jammed or something, and they have to go in and winch the thing that's jamming it in order to escape. And because they're so deep and they've never been that deep before, there are creatures down there.
That's right. See, I think it's quite well thought through, right? That they end up down the bottom of the ocean, and that's where the big squids are.
Yeah.
So the ship gets attacked by a big gigantic squid.
Yeah. Was the squid swimming in the right direction, Tom?
No.
I'm pretty sure squids swim the other way. I don't think squids
Yes, they
swim legs first.
Well, they can go.
They can do
go
both. No, they can do both.
They
They're
can
rocket-
do both, yes, but normally they rocket bum. Well, what we could consider away from the arms.
Yeah.
That's where that's the normal swimming direction. If they're going fast, if they're going slowly,
Yes, I think you're
they're
right.
going. They can because their arms have they've got like 8 arms and 2 hands, two feeding arms, the ones with that go wide at the end.
Yeah.
And that's what they grab their food with. And so they do go in that tentacle direction when they grab food. But I mean, these squid were chasing the Nautilus at high speed, wasn't he? He was sort of latching onto it, like the antibodies latched onto Raquel Welch in the
Fantastic Voyage.
Yeah, it's sort of
They tried to
coming
zap
at-
the squid, right? They
tried
tried
to
to,
zap- yep.
and initially it worked,
Yep.
but then the
Yep.
squid came
Yep.
back.
And this is where they head up towards the surface.
That's correct.
I think that they're obviously using reverse squids on camera. So they have the squid stuck to the model of the ship.
Yeah.
And then they kind of pull it off with string. And so
Yeah.
it all then forms into a long, thin
Yeah.
slither and slips through the water. But when you play it in reverse, it comes cruising in and then it grabs a hold of the
Yes.
ship. It looks
Yeah.
bloody amazing.
It was well done. So now they're on the surface.
Yep.
And the crew
And it's axe time.
That's right. And Nemo, he doesn't shirk his duty
No.
as the captain. He leads the attack
Yes.
on the squid. Doesn't go well. Nemo gets grabbed by the squid, and they're not. Various crew members are knocked into the water and things like that. And the battle is quite intense. And Ned, who has escaped from his cabin, He's also
He's
kicked
picked up. He's picked up the last little weapon that was still left over,
That's
which
right.
is a wee little knife.
Yep, he's got a knife in his hand, and he finds a harpoon.
Yep. Somewhere.
That's his job. He is a harpoonist, and hits the magic zone between the eyeballs. Apparently, that's how you have to kill them.
It's like on a computer game. There's one of those glowing areas that you've got to hit. So he hits that.
Yes. So I think he kills the squid with the harpoon hit,
Yes.
but the squid hasn't let Nemo go, and as it starts to sink, Ned jumps in and chops the arm off the squid that was holding Nemo and rescues him, saves his life.
Which leads to, when they all get back in the boat, a bit of a discussion about why did Ned save his life.
Yes, Nemo's in a quandary.
So I don't think he answers that. I think he says,
He says, "Yeah, why indeed?" and walks off.
Yes, he says, "Excuse me while I go and get drunk."
Yes, that's right. That's what he says. All right, so that was there's lots of sort of rocky sort of climax, and then there's lots of action going on in the film, because it still isn't over yet, because they still have to get back to, it's not Volcanus, it's Volcania.
Yeah, it's Volcania.
Is where they go, and so Volcania is a volcano that sort of sticks out of the water, and that's Nemo's home base. And so they're heading back there for repairs.
Cool design.
and whatnot.
I like the design, the fact that it's you get to it in the Nautilus through an underwater cave.
Yep.
And it's a caldera. Is it the caldera?
I think so.
Right, and it's at sea level, right? The bottom of the caldera is actually at sea level. So really it's sort of just the rim of the volcano that's above sea level, and then his base is inside that.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And they've got a beautiful matte painting shot where you see it at a three-quarter top angle looking down into the caldera of the mountain, and you see the filmed footage of a model Nautilus turning through water, leaving a wake behind, and then that's all surrounded by the matte painting.
Yeah, it's they did amazing work. It feels like most of the shots in the film are some sort of special effect.
Yeah.
Or if they're not, there's some sort of crazy set that they've built, which is the submarine.
Now, from a narrative perspective, there is something important that happens here when they're closing in on Volcania. Nemo talks to the professor about why he let him on the sub in the first place, and that he wanted to share. He was contemplating this whole time whether I should share my discoveries and my science with the rest of mankind. And he says, "Would you be able to, Professor, convince mankind to let go of their warring ways and all this other stuff? If you could do that, then I would be willing to share my stuff." Then they turn up and then right at that moment, they discover there's a fleet in front of them parked around the island, and so the Nemo just in an instant changes his mind. Says, "See, this is exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not sharing anything.
Yeah.
To hell with you all."
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of conclusion. And the other interesting plot point is that they find their way there from the messages in the bottles that Ned had been chucking into the water.
It was us. We did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of well written, and there's good motivations for the characters and good sort of subtext underneath, and it's all sort of connected. So it's pretty well done. So Nemo, we're coming into the conclusion now. It's all over, Red Rover. So Nemo is, he's calling it quits. He
determines that it's going to take the good guys that are in the blockade.
Yeah.
Half an hour to reach the summit.
Yes, to get into the center of the volcano.
To then be able to come down into it. And he has to try to beat them to the base.
To prevent them getting the
to blow it up.
Yes, to prevent them getting the tech.
Yes. And
so he
goes through the cave, which maybe connects to what Tom was talking about earlier with the cave, going through
the Suez
cave,
canal cave.
They've worked it into the film where there is a cave scene where you get from A to B through an underwater cave. And then Nemo and a couple of crew member row to shore while Ned jumps out onto the deck of the Nautilus, rips his shirt off as he's Kirk Douglas's
for the 15th time.
Right,
Yep.
waves it at the guys that are coming over the ridge, and the guys that are coming over the ridge proceed to just shoot at him.
Yes, they don't really care. They're just like, let's just shoot at everybody.
We sent the bottles. We sent the message.
that's
Bang,
right.
bang.
They're all soldiers wearing pith helmets and all wearing the South African Dutch sort of uniforms or something, and they're just walking down an incredibly steep incline, shooting the entire time.
Yep.
Shooting.
Yep.
So Nemo runs into the factory, his base. He from the ship
Under withering gunfire.
under withering gunfire. I don't know what he does in there. Sets off the
He activates
demolition
the self-destruct
Yes.
system.
Yep.
Right. And then he comes running back out, jumps into the launch, and heads back to the Nautilus.
Everybody makes it back inside unscathed,
Yes.
except for Nemo.
Except poor old Nemo.
He takes a life-ending bullet to the lower back.
Yep, bullet to the back. And then he proceeds to, for some reason, decides he's going to drive the ship. So on their escape route through the tunnel on the way back out, underneath the volcano, the wounded, dying, mortally wounded Nemo crashes into a few things as he's like, yeah, that's what your crew's for, Nemo.
Yeah.
Just like, tell the crew to do it. But anyway.
Yeah, they're all dedicated. He says we're ending it, and all the crew says, "Yep."
Yeah,
Let's
so that's
die.
the other thing is, Nemo's decided, well, they shot me, so I guess we all have to die.
I think Ned even makes the statement, we're not part of your suicide pact.
Yes.
And that's exactly what's going on, is that Nemo has decided that we're all going to die because he's going to die. And the crew say, yep, we know that that's the rules.
that was the rule right from the start.
So they go
That was the contract.
back to their quarters and get ready to die. Ned has different... they get locked in their cabins. Ned and the professor get locked in their cabins while Nemo is dying in his quarters. And Ned punches a few more guys in the face.
Punches his way out, yes.
He punches faces all the way to the
surface.
knobs and dials and surfaces the boat.
Yes.
allowing them
And
to
our heroes escape, but the Nautilus is taken by the waves.
Yes, after the explosion. I think the waves are the tidal wave caused by the
Shockwave, yeah,
massive
from the-
explosion of the island.
It
think-
also blows up all
were
the
they-
ships.
Were they going for a nuclear explosion here? Because the way the mushroom,
pretty close.
It looks like a mushroom cloud.
Look pretty
It
close.
does look like a mushroom cloud. I think that's what they went for here.
So heroes escape, island goes boom, Nautilus slips beneath the waves.
And just prior to escaping...
Single arm.
Well, just prior to
Are you
escaping...
talking about this?
No, the professor and he implores Nemo to share the secrets. Give me the, let me go with the information. And Nemo says no. And then I think he says, I am confident that sometime in the future all this will come to pass anyway, sort of thing. And then right at the very end, when we are seeing the Nautilus sink beneath the waves, an echoey voice says the same words again, which is, that all of this will come to pass again. And that's how the movie ends. And we roll credits. That's the end. Walt Disney.
Done. Yeah.
We do see Nemo die in a corny little death scene, which
Yes.
I thought fantastic. You have this window, and this one arm comes
That's
up to the
right.
lever,
Yeah.
opens the window
open-
to
Yes.
see the ocean.
One
and
last
die.
time.
Yes.
And
And
then lies
he
there with
doesn't
his eyes open.
he doesn't just slump. He slumps back to camera.
Yes,
Right?
very
It's
dramatically.
a slump roll back to
Yes.
camera.
Dramatically dead.
With eyeballs open. So that's it, gentlemen. The 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Disney journey. There is quite a few 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea cinematic outings over the years. 1997, Richard Crenna, Ben Cross. Richard Crenna, I think, famously was Rambo's commanding officer in First Blood. Michael Caine in 1997, also in a totally different there were two 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in 1997. and Michael Caine and Patrick Dempsey were in one of them.
Okay.
We also have 2014, that's 20,000 Days on Earth. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 1916.
Yes, there's an earlier one. Yeah.
That's early as hell, right? That's when Hollywood had a little bit of a thing for Jules Verne, because of similar time period to the moonshot destination moon type.
Yeah, they just discovered special effects, and they said, well, we can now finally put all these fantastic scientific books to screen.
Bring them to life. Yeah.
So there were some others, but this one is the 1954 Disney outing with Kirk Douglas and James Mason. Now, our rating system, buy, borrow, burn. We'll start out with you, Tom. Where are you with this film?
I think if I found the DVD, I would buy it because it apparently has two discs worth of special features on it.
All right.
The film is okay. I love the story, but I love the book, and the film is not quite like the book. But I think I would be in a buy for the sake of getting the special features of the DVD.
And you've got a multi-layered connection to this particular story and writer and film itself. So it's a buy for you. What about you, Tom? Dan?
It's buy from me as well. Absolutely. I think it's a classic, and the story, the set design, the art design, and the special effects, and even acting and things, it's all scoring really highly. Yeah, absolutely classic. Buy it. Yep, it's great.
Yeah, I think it's unanimous then, because I would buy it as well for all of those reasons. I definitely think it's something that's worthy of being in your collection. It's an achievement.
Yeah.
It punches above its weight for its time period. I don't think you don't even have to lean into this film and accept lower production values and things like that for some other reason, right?
You don't have to make excuses.
Yeah, it doesn't require excuses to be made for it. It has good, high-quality budget, a high-quality production in both design but execution as well. It's a standout. I think it's certainly an entertaining film. A little bit slow, I think, for younger crowds. I think if they would try to watch it, they wouldn't make it past the first 40 minutes of the film. But certainly seasoned cinematic veterans, you would certainly put this on your shelf and have it there for a rainy day. So unanimous, it's a buy for this one. All right, gentlemen, I've got 10 questions. Now, Tom, you don't have a buzzer, so your buzzer is going to be your name.
Tom!
Yep, you can certainly say it like that, but I will turn the buzzer on here.
Okay.
Okay.
So I've got the quicker you say it, the better, because if you're still saying and Dan buzzes in, you're out.
This is Tom.
Just test your buzzer for me for a second there, Dan. Yeah, nice.
All right.
Okay. Question number 1. What is the name of the ship that sets out to find the sea monster?
Tom. Well, no, not really. It's the Lincoln, but only in the book. It's the Abraham Lincoln.
Is that only in the book?
That's the book. And in the film, I don't know that it has a name in the film. I do know that they have a portrait of Abraham Lincoln somewhere in the cabins, but I'm not sure I don't know what the name of the ship is in the film.
In the film, it is the Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. Is it? Did they mention it?
Did they say that in the film?
They might not. Now, I'll be the first to admit that ChatGPT may have helped me with some of my questions, but I did specifically ask ChatGPT, a close and personal friend of mine, to only include questions from the film and not from trivia and other things.
Okay.
Yeah, you know how kids are; they don't listen. ChatGPT is like 2 years old.
So I'm going to not give Tom the points there.
Despite me saying it's the Lincoln.
Because of a dispute over the question, it wasn't specifically from the film.
This is rigged.
Question number 2.
Okay.
What is the name of the professor who joins the expedition to find the sea monster?
Professor Pierre? Oh.
Dan?
Aronnax.
Professor Pierre Aronnax.
That's correct, Tom, but too late. 1-0 to Dan. Question number 3. What is Ned Land's profession? Dan.
He is a harpoonologist.
Yes, I will accept that. Question number 4. What does Captain Nemo hate about society? I've got 2 things listed. You can have either one of them would be correct. Dan.
Society's warlike nature.
I will accept that. I had war and imperialism. And the imperialism, I think, is more to do with the novel than the... I don't know whether he mentions imperialism in the film, but he certainly mentions war.
Mm-hmm.
Dan has exploded out of the blocks here. I might give Tom back the first question.
What?
Right?
Totally rigging this.
I'm doing it. All right.
Pity points. I don't think I got pity points.
Question number 5.
Mm-hmm.
What is the name of Captain Nemo's secret base?
Oh, yeah. I'm just not fast on the trigger today.
Dan?
It is called Volcania,
Volcania is correct.
Yep.
which is a very cool name for a sci-fi bad guy's base.
Score is 4-1 to Dan. Tom, you're going to have to make quite the comeback here.
I blame time delay between Australia and Germany.
Question. Yeah, but you're not saying your name at all.
I'm
So you're
saying
not
Pete.
buzzing.
Yeah, no, I'm
You're not
doing
buzzing
the
in
right
at
thing.
all.
It's like, Tom. Okay. Getting ready.
Maybe there is a time delay problem
No,
here.
because I have to think about the answer, so I can't think about also saying my name at the same time. I don't have a finger.
Your
finger
brain
press.
is getting used.
Yes.
Yeah, brain is not. I can't do 2 things at the same time.
Yes.
So next time I'll just say Tom first, and then I'll think
and
about
then
the
get
answer.
it wrong. Okay. Question number.
There's no harm in getting it wrong.
No, that's right. You don't lose points. Question number 6. What does Professor Aronnax think about Atlantis? Now I don't think this was in the film.
No.
Dan.
I'm going to completely guess that he does not believe that it's real.
So that's polar opposite to the correct answer.
Oh, bugger.
Okay, can I have a go?
Yes.
I think he thinks Atlantis existed. And in fact, I can back it up with the book where they actually visit.
So
They do visit the sunken city, and they walk it, and they see volcanoes underwater, and they see old ruined cities with columns, and they see for miles and miles and miles in a huge, beautiful landscape.
Yep. So the correct answer that I had was Professor Aronnax believes that Atlantis was a real place and that it was destroyed by a volcanic eruption. I do believe, because it rings a bell, that the questions that I've got might not specifically be, whilst they are from a film, 20,000 Leagues Under the
Not
Sea,
from the
they
sea.
might not be
Our
this film.
No, this film had nothing to do with Atlantis.
So I'm pretty
It was
sure
never
Atlantis is mentioned in one of the other variations. And I believe there are females in some of the other variations of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Really?
Maybe the professor's got a daughter or something like that. Question number 8. What happens...
What's the name of the daughter?
What is the name of the daughter?
I don't know. That could be your next question if you're going by that sort
Okay,
of
it's not.
ChatGPT telling you.
Yeah, no, it's not. Question number 8. What happens to Ned Land at the end of the movie?
Tom.
Tommy?
I don't know. He's saved with everyone else.
That is correct. Ned Land escapes from the Nautilus and swims to safety.
Okay, that was what I was going to say. You beat me to it.
What else? Yeah.
All right, question number 9. The score is 4-3. Tom
close.
is catching up. Question number 9. What does Captain Nemo use to power his submarine?
Dude. Tom. Sorry.
That's Dan. Dan beat you on that one.
Well, the question is, are we talking about the books or are we talking about the...
Oh, it's about the film, I think.
About the film.
We're doing a podcast on the film.
Okay, so I'm going to go with the film. He uses the dynamic power of the universe.
Oh, really?
Why, what have you got?
Electricity.
Oh, that's the books. In the film...
Well, no, in
No,
the
I
film,
think he still uses
converts.
electricity. He just
Yeah.
powers the electricity from the
There's electricity on the boat, but that power thing that they
I've got a
look
feeling,
at...
doesn't even modern submarines, even nuclear submarines,
Yeah,
the
you use-
nuclear
you use-
turns into electricity, and the
Yes,
electricity
exactly.
powers the submarine.
Yes, they use light bulbs
Exactly.
that use electricity.
Yes.
They don't-
So Electricity is probably. We don't really go into detail whether it is nuclear. He doesn't say the word nuclear.
No, in the film, I wrote it down. In the film, they kind of waffle it.
They
right?
do waffle it.
They don't specifically say
Yes.
atomic power.
Yeah.
They say, that's why he says the dynamic power of the universe.
Yes.
He has learned to harness the dynamic power of the universe.
Yes.
So what are you going to do for points for that then?
I'm not giving points to anybody for that. Because it was a little bit open-ended, and you're right, they did sort of waffle a little bit. If you had said electricity, I would have said yes.
Okay.
All right, final question.
All right.
Tom, if you get this right, it's a 4-all draw. Dan, if you get this right, you take out the show. What type of creature do they initially believe to
Tom!
be?
Sorry, I have to say it. I can't.
Yes,
can't
go for it.
first.
Go for it, Tommy.
They just say, don't they just say it as a sea monster?
No,
Don't they go for monster?
no, they name it. They give it. And it's in this film.
Right. Well, over to Dan then.
Okay, so I now can't lose.
No, you can't.
Well, you
Okay.
can't lose.
Okay. So, I don't know. They named it a caterpillar.
It was a giant narwhal. It was giant narwhal.
All right. I didn't know the answer to that one. I thought it might have been a sperm whale, but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Yes.
Those
a narwhal.
nasty sperm whales.
Yes. They
Hate
they
them,
talk of
except for their milk.
how big would the narwhal need to be to sink a ship, and I think he says, oh, it would
You
have
do
to be
know
monstrously
that
large.
the submarine rams ships.
Yes.
It doesn't have torpedoes or guns because they
in the
hadn't.
book, I think it has torpedoes because
Does it?
because
No.
I had a bonus question that ChatGPT found for me that said, how does Nemo destroy the ships? And it says torpedoes, and I had to scrub it out because I watched the film and said there's no torpedoes.
ChatGPT has not
I
been
don't
watching
have
the
any
film
recollection.
because early submarines used to have like a bomb on a stick. That
Right.
was the weapon.
Yes.
It's like this big lance with a bomb on it, and you would just sort of swim around and then bump into things, and then, in theory, it would blow up the other thing and not you. And so anyway, that's why I guess Jules Verne is writing that the ship is ramming other ships because nobody'd come up with the idea of having a torpedo.
The very design of the sub makes it a very good ramming device. Like it has this big blade on the front of it.
Yeah.
In the books, they ram the ice to break through the ice when they reach the South Pole. But all the fighting with the ships, the book is written from the perspective of the captives, and the captives always get locked in their room. So this description in the book is really, we are sitting in our room and there's a whole banging and the boat is shaking and we don't know what's going on. And then the next day we're out again and everything's calm. And that's all. All the killing happens off page. So we don't actually learn how he does it.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
There is, I think, at the Abraham Lincoln at that point, that did get rammed. But whether Nemo did that on purpose or whether that's because they shot at him and the Nautilus was damaged, I'm not entirely sure anymore.
Okay, that's interesting.
Well, that's it. Dan, you've taken out the quiz for this round.
That might be the first quiz I've ever won.
I do believe you were assisted somewhat by a half a second to 1 second delay.
No, it was my natural genius.
And there may have been a couple there where you buzzed in and then half a second later Tom goes,
don't
Tom,
believe it.
and I'm pretty sure he may have said it.
I'm pretty sure in my mind I said it at the same time as Dan over here.
So we'll review the tapes.
No, not a chance.
We'll review the tapes. We'll
No,
work
it
out
was
the
a
specific
spectacular
millisecond
victory.
delay, and
Spectacular.
there could be a protest coming later on. I feel. All right. If you are interested in listening to the waffling and dribble of a bunch of people such as ourselves about film, sci-fi, fantasy type films, things like that, then certainly subscribe and like and ring the bell if you're YouTube inclined. But if you don't like to see the windswept and interesting weathered faces of us guys, then we're available on podcast and we're out there on iTunes, Stitcher, and now I can reveal that we are on Spotify.
Woohoo!
So definitely subscribe to the podcast. Trust me, it's a better show. I believe it's better than watching us on video.
You can do something else, something practical and
Yes,
useful.
you drive your car. You can engage
the
in
dishes.
road rage while you listen to the show. But
ski
that's
down a
it.
mountain.
Yes, that's it for another show, gentlemen. Until next time, it's bye for me.
Bye-bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
What is your industry? How many of you are there?